Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are watching the Katherine Knight murder case. Let's get into the video. This video is already a little bit long, a little bit too long, longer than my usual videos, so let me not make it longer. Let's get into it. But anyways, if you guys can't hear me, please forgive me. I'll try to put the volume up, but my microphone, well, my recording camera is acting up, so I'm charging it and recording at the same time, so I cannot connect my speaker. So yeah, I hope y'all can hear me. But anyways, let's get into the video. Let's watch. Hopefully you can actually listen to the story and not get drawn into her little makeup scene that she does. But I like it. They are so interesting. Like, I love her videos. But let's get into it. Let me not do too much of the talking because she's about to do all that. But yeah, let's go.
Let me look into this. This lady is intense. Let's get into it. This is what I'm using. Okay, today we're going to be talking about Katherine Knight. Are you familiar? You probably are, because she was a big deal. I think she still is, but not really. Shut up, Bailey. Get to the point. Okay, so Katherine Knight lived in Aberdeen, New South Wales, which is north of Sydney, Australia. A little background, she worked in a slaughterhouse in 1971. She then worked on animal carcasses, and she would work in the boning room, so she would get all the meat off of the animals, and she would cut the marrow off as well. Her coworkers would say like she was really good with a knife, and she was really good at her job. Based off of reports, it seemed like she also really enjoyed it. Katherine, though, she in her personal life had a string of bad relationships.
How do somebody enjoy
while working
slicing
as
meat?
a boner in the butcher shop, Katherine met a guy named David. We'll call him David K. David K. His last name is Collette, I think. Collette. David was reported to be a raging alcoholic and prone to fistfights or just fighting. So he would drink and then he would fight. It was reported that David would try to beat Katherine, but
First of all, an alcoholic and a person who enjoy cutting people or cutting meat are not a good mix. They're already crazy together. Imagine. First of all, that's just that.
she could hold her own. So David quickly learned that Katherine actually could throw down. She never backed down, and she always would fight back. So if he tried to attack her, she would come at him 10 times harder.
Like I'm
In
saying, I knew that was
Katherine
gonna be like a toxic
convinced
relationship
David to
already.
get married. Even though they had problems in the relationship, marriage seemed like a good idea. So they got married, and throughout the marriage, David was obviously drunk because he was an alcoholic, which would cause issues in the relationship, in anyone's relationship, really.
Like, I don't understand people who actually see like a problem and still end up getting married to the problem.
Katherine got really upset, so it triggered something in her, and some people reported that it had to do with hearing friends and family saying, oh, we did it 3 to 4 times a night on our wedding night. So she was like comparing her wedding night to what she's heard it's supposed to be like. So when they only did it one time and then David fell asleep, it made Katherine really upset. So she then decided to strangle him because that, I guess that just made sense to her. But he ended up waking up and he fought.
Did you hear that? So on their wedding night, well, before she got married, she heard that people usually have, intercourse multiple times on their honeymoon night, right? The night of the wedding. They usually do it 3 to 4 times. So this man, after his wedding out, they went back to the bedroom and he only did it one time and fell asleep. So because he only did it one time and she was jealous of the people that did it 3 or 4 times, she decided to try to kill him. Does that make, like, what? What about the second, the third, or the 4th night? You can't try another night?
Katherine off of him. So despite Katherine almost killing David
but
on
he
the
survived.
first night of their marriage, They ended up staying together for 10 years. In those 10 years, they had 2 daughters. Also, in that 10 years, David ended up leaving one time. So apparently, David had snuck out of the house in the middle of the night.
How did they manage to stay in a marriage for 10
When
years?
he left, it sent Katherine into a really deep depression. At one point, Katherine ended up staying in a psychiatric hospital for a couple of months after she had gone to a mechanic who had worked on David's car. She tried to fight him, or she threatened to kill him. You see, she was upset with the mechanic because the mechanic had fixed David's car, which helped get David away from Katherine. So she was upset
at the mechanic
because how dare he help David get away from her?
How dare he do his job?
To us, we're like, girl, no. And once she got out, her and David actually ended up back together again. It didn't last long, though, and then they ended up separating. Once Katherine and David
So, let me get this straight. So, her husband, at the time, his car was broken, and he took it to the mechanic, and the mechanic fixed the car, and the man used the car to run away from her. So she thought that was the mechanic's fault. So she tried to fight the mechanic. And then, I think she tried to kill the mechanic. And then they put her in a psychiatric home.
That's where she belongs.
She belongs in jail!
Did she kill a nigga?
No!
Did she, what type of harm did she do to him?
I don't know. She didn't really go deep into it. But she belonged in jail.
If she didn't put the man in the hospital, then the psychiatric home is the right place.
Why?
Because she didn't.
She could get out and do the same thing. She's not crazy. She is stupid.
Yeah. Did all the tests with people. She's not gonna be out anytime soon.
She's already out.
She Caucasian, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
But how they put her in a crazy home when she tried to kill somebody?
Attempted.
For doing their job.
If that's a black person, you know what was going on.
How does that say the person is crazy? That person belongs in jail. Somewhere else.
Well, then Katherine met another David named David Saunders, and they ended up in a relationship. David number 2. A few months after meeting, David and Katherine ended up moving in together. So everything was moving very quick.
Very
but he
fast.
also kept his own apartment. So he's kind of living in 2 places at one time. David did not want to move in with Katherine. He liked having his own place. And this pissed Katherine off.
Of course it does.
It meant that he was living this double life. He obviously had his a whole nother separate life that he didn't want to combine his life with hers. It probably means that he's cheating on her.
And he don't want to be with her, this and that. Of course, crazy people.
It really set her off and made her just very upset to a degree that you and I probably don't understand, because what she did to prove that she was upset is just
mind-blowing.
In an argument, Katherine took their 2-month-old puppy. She slit the puppy's throat in front of David just to show him what she was capable of. If that's not a red flag, I don't know what is.
I don't know what is. What?
I'm sorry for laughing. This isn't funny, but this part's kind of funny.
That could be you. Why would he?
The reasoning behind slitting the puppy's throat was that she was just cranky. That was her excuse. That she was just cranky. Despite all that happening, they ended up having a daughter together. And shortly after the daughter was born, there was an altercation. They got into a fight, and Katherine stabbed David with a pair of scissors. I'm not really sure what the fight was, and if he reported it or not. I guess I could have dug a little bit deeper on that one, but I didn't. That relationship ended. So then Katherine gets into another relationship. His name is John.
At least these ones they got out
for
alive.
About 3 years. There wasn't much abuse going on in this new relationship. They ended up having a son together, and it's said that this relationship was really calm and good because most of the time Katherine was cheating on John with another man whose name was John Price. It said that her relationship was good because she was having an affair, and so that's why there was no reports of her being crazy.
So because she
So
had
John
two people to
was
deal with,
45 at the
she didn't
time,
have one person to
and
always
this
focus
would
all
just
her
be the
attention on to
relationship
try
that
to
really
mess up the
pushed her
relationship.
over the edge. When the relationship first started, it was going really well. They would go out socially, have some drinks with friends at the local pub. John had two. Wait, are these all the same names?
Yeah.
John had two children who lived with him. They were a little bit older though, so they weren't young. And the children reported to really like Catherine. They didn't have any issues with her.
She's
John
basically been with
worked
4
in
guys with the
local
same
mines,
names.
and he made
2
pretty
Johns
good
and 2
money,
Davies.
and he did really well for himself. But Catherine did suggest to John that they get married. But John actually declined. He was like, no, this isn't a good idea. I don't really want to get married. And when he declined, that's when obviously things once again just didn't go so well. That's when friends would notice that Catherine started to become very verbally abusive towards him. Mentally, she was always in his head. She would also become physically abusive with John as well. So she was just beating the poor guy up. The worst thing about, this isn't the worst thing about her, but the thing with Catherine is when she was upset, she would always fight with vengeance. Like, she wouldn't just fight with you like a normal person. With Catherine, she was just cutthroat. Like, one thing she had done was John took home a first aid kit from his work, and Catherine took video of it showing that the first aid kit was in his possession, and then she sent that to John's boss, which then got him fired because to the company it was seen as him stealing property or whatever. So she did that because she was mad at him that he wouldn't get married to her, but then she ended up getting him fired. So now John's like
jobless.
I mean, it turns out the first aid kit was only worth like $20. So it was really upsetting to John, and John actually ended up kicking her out of the house that they lived in, which was John's house. So John was fired from his job, and then he kicked Catherine out. They actually were apart for about 3 months, but somehow Catherine would always weasel her way back in with these guys. So Catherine would constantly pressure John to marry her. I don't know what it is with her in marriage. Like, she just wanted to be married. John refused, and it would just lead to more and more fights. Their friends and their family started to notice it even more. Anytime that there was an altercation, though, between Catherine and John would go tell a friend what was going on. That way he always had a witness or somebody who knew what happened, just in case Catherine wanted to flip the script and act like she was the victim in the relationship. So at least he was kind of smart in that sense. Like,
you know how usually they tell people keep other people, friends, family, and stuff like that out of your relationship? This was an obsession. How do you say it? Obsession. Not obsession. This one was an obsession. No, it wasn't like. I don't want to say obsession. Like.
That's the word, obsession.
No, I don't want to say obsession. I want to say exception.
Exception.
Exception. This one was an exception. This one was an exception. Exception. This one was an exception. This one was an exception. Exception. This one was an
Say X first.
This one was an exception. This one was an exception. I feel like I went back.
You did.
This one was an exception. He had all right. He did a good job. That was a good idea with him telling somebody that every time they had an argument or what was going on during the argument, this and that, whatever he was doing, that was good. Because imagine she's from what she did for his job with the first aid kit, she is definitely the type who will basically do something to him, call the cops, and then say that he did the thing. But now that he have witnesses that know the situation, She can go and do all that, and then they will still go up to the friends and stuff, and they will be like, "Oh, they had an argument last week, and she threatened him and said this," or they'll go to the other person, "Oh, they had an argument last week, and she said and did this." So, yeah, this is a good idea.
Was trying to let people know, like, this is what happened. If you hear something else, then it's a lie. So eventually John ended up calling the police because he wanted Katherine out of the house. He wanted her gone, and she wouldn't leave. So he called the police thinking that, you know, they could pretty much escort Katherine out of the household. He could get rid of her, just remove her from my house. But the police came back saying that John needed a court order to get her removed from the house.
Why?
In February of 2000, there was a fight between Katherine and John, which ended with a chest wound. So Katherine tried to stab John, and she ended up going to police and reported that he was being violent towards her, and it was in self-defense. She then took a restraining order out against him. But these restraining orders, no matter like who got one, they would always end up back together. I think John knew that something was going to happen because he ended up telling coworkers if he ever goes missing or something happens to him, that it was Katherine.
Like, he knew she was crazy.
He was telling coworkers this, and really just like being open about it. He also sat down his boss and told his boss everything that was going on as well. And
like, he was scared for his life. She was probably threatening him.
Katherine. The bitch is crazy.
She is crazy.
So John ends up going to the courts because he wants to get Katherine removed from the house, and also a restraining order against her. So he goes to the courts, he tells them everything that's going on, and he left there with a restraining order which would limit contact from Katherine. But of course they went ignored by Katherine. Like, she didn't give two shits. So a little while later, John comes home from work, and he has like a whole routine where he goes to the neighbors, he says hello, checks in with everybody, and then he ends up falling asleep. We're going to bed at 11 p.m. Katherine came home shortly after that. She made herself dinner, she watched some TV, she took a shower, and then she went up to bed and she woke John up. They had sexual relations, and then they went back to bed. Well, John went back to bed. Katherine kept a butcher's knife in her bedstand next to the bed in one of the drawers.
And she killed him.
Why? And then this is when everything just goes bad. And I don't know what exactly triggered this. Something was triggered. So Katherine opens up her nightstand. She takes out her butcher knife, and then she proceeds to stab John 37 times. And according to blood evidence, it seemed that John definitely tried to fight back, and he tried to make a run for it, but eventually he passed away. After killing John, she then took a bunch of pills, laid down, and I think she tried to kill herself, or she was just putting on a show for police. We don't really know. The next day, John's co-workers, took his word for it. He didn't show up for work that day. They were like, John said if he doesn't come to work, to call the police because Katherine killed him. So John doesn't show up for work, and his coworkers being
that seems a little suspicious too.
Police go to the house. They're gonna go do a check, see what's going on.
She probably said that that day, "Oh, I will kill you tonight," or if you come home tonight, I'm gonna kill you.
They see that John's truck.
Because why is he telling people that he's gonna die?
Then they look through the little peephole. Not the peephole, where they put the mail slot. Yes. They look through the mail slot just to see if they can see anything. The police reported that all he could see was a big curtain hanging, and it was blocking his view. So after no response, the police go inside of the home, and they proceed inside. So they're walking towards this big curtain. The other police officer thought it was a big blanket that was kind of covering the way. They could automatically see when they walked in, there's just blood everywhere. Right? So they know something went down in here, okay? They're walking towards this curtain. The police pushes the curtain aside, so they proceed into the room. So he uses his left arm to push it aside. The police looks down and realizes his whole arm is covered in blood. So he looks at this curtain that he just pushed aside. He looks at the curtain. He realizes it's not a curtain. This is serious. He looks and he realizes it's not a curtain. Nay. It's skin hanging from the door frame. Just skin. Then he looks down on the ground and sees a torso on the ground. No head. Side note, I know a police officer is supposed to be, brave and strong, but any of us ran out of there so quick, screaming. Hell no. That's like something you would just see in a movie, not real life.
A freaking movie.
So the officer keeps walking and sees that there's blood all over the walls, just splattered everywhere. The floor was covered in blood. Then the officers walk into the kitchen and they see plates of food being prepared, like there was vegetables, there was meat cooked. They searched the house, they went upstairs into the hallway, and then they heard someone snoring. Bitch, run, But they didn't. Katherine was on the bed, sleeping. Police officers tried to wake her up, but she wasn't responding. They then picked her up, carried her outside, and put her on the back lawn. So police go back into the home, and then that's when they start to just see more that they didn't want to see. So they realized that the skin was hanging from butcher's hooks on the door frame, just skin. John's head, because his torso was on the ground and there was no head. They found his head and it was cooking in a stew in the kitchen. So
my
it was on the
God.
stove. John's head was on the stove. And the investigators show up to the house and instantly they notice a sweet smell. But it's like it's like that sweet smell as if it's a body, I guess. Anyway, so they walk into the house and instantly they notice the flesh, the skin hanging from the meat hooks in the doorway.
Was roasting.
So forensic investigators determined that based off of the blood spatters, again, blood spatters tell a lot. More than I thought. Based off the blood spatters, they could tell that, okay, John was on the bed, right? Katherine stabbed him a shit ton of times. John then tried to get up, make a run for it. So he gets up off of the bed and there's blood on the light switch. So they were like, okay, so he must have been like reaching for the light switch. They then notice like down the hallway that there's blood swipes down the hallway. So they see, okay, so he's trying to run down the hallway. As it proceeded downwards, they noticed that the blood spatters were getting lower and lower. So John was like slowly falling downwards, probably because he's getting weaker and weaker. Then they noticed that the front door had blood on the screen, so John made it to the front door. But then they saw on the ground that there was like this dragging motion of blood, so Katherine must have grabbed him and then dragged him back to wherever she was going with it. In the lounge room, that's where the torso was found, and that's where like the biggest pool of blood was. So I guess Katherine just laid him on the ground. That's where she skinned him. And at first I was like, dang, how'd she know how to skin him? Well, back when she was skinning the animals and stuff in the butcher place, that's where she learned her little tricks, I guess. So she skinned John, and then she took his skin off.
How can somebody feel so freaking comfortable with skinning another human being? Like, what? Oh my God, people are so disgusting! People are so weird. Like, what? Like, oh my God. She belonged in a psychiatric home. Like, what? She skinned her husband or her boyfriend and had his head boiling on the stove. And then she's upstairs sleeping. Sound too. Very, very deep into the sleep. I don't know if she tried to kill herself, but she was deep into that damn sleep. And she didn't even hear them trying to wake her up. What? This man done fought for his damn life. She met his ass downstairs, dragged him, skinned him. Oh my God, he was probably alive when she was skinning him. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. My throat is dry. I knew when this girl said that she used to butcher animals, that this was going to be the end of a person. Oh my. Let's just get to the video. Like, this story is very brutal.
And she placed it onto the carpet, like next to her. And then they know that the head was still on the body when he was on the ground because there was like an outline on the carpet or the floor of where his head was. Forensic investigators assumed, okay, well, she then cut his head off and then she carried it to the kitchen because there were blood stains now leading into the kitchen where they assumed she carried his head. It's like hard to believe, honestly. It just sounds like something from a movie, right? Like, what? I made the mistake of looking up the images.
Don't show us. Please don't show us.
Then in the kitchen is where she cut a big piece of muscle from his back, so like your big back muscle. She cut that into 5 separate pieces, like 5 little mini steaks. And then she cooked it in the oven, 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. They saw that she had 4 plates made, and then the dog outside had the 5th piece of meat.
Oh my.
Then they also noticed that there were, what's it called? Table settings. Table was made because she was going to have dinner guests over. So there was little nameplates, and it was all the nameplates of their children. So Katherine was planning on, I guess, having people over and feeding them their own father. Did she think that people were going to come over and not?
Like, the images are in my head. The image of her cutting up this man's body. Do you know how much blood is in a human body? And when you are traumatized, your heart pumps more blood when you're scared. Or when there's fear. So, this lady cut up this man's head. Blood is dripping from the fucking head. She's carrying it to the kitchen. All that blood is already on that rug. How are you going to get rid of that? Then, she cut up one of the biggest muscles in your back. Cut into small pieces. Cook that joint. Cook the man's head. Set up a table for his kids to come over. Like, is she not thinking about how she's going to clean up this mess so nobody can see? Or she, at this point, she just don't care. Because the blood is from upstairs, on the stairs, at the door. Why is something poking me? At the fucking door, she dragged his ass. Well, I don't know. She dragged him, I guess, to the living room area. Peel his damn skin off. Cut off his head. All that. Why is something poking me? All that blood is already on that floor. If she's using bleach, do you know how much bleach you're going to have to use to clean up all that mess? That's like a whole... From the story, it seemed like there's enough blood to clean up for the whole freaking day. Because then she had the dog in the backyard chewing on meat. So obviously that blood is dragging out that way. And then she take the man's skin. Scratch that motherfucker from the sky, from the ceiling, all the way down. So it look like a curtain. And she got a table set for his kids to come and eat. Their daddy. Let's get back to the story.
It's like the blood everywhere. That's so crazy. I don't want to know. So police, investigators obviously took all of the items in the house that had blood on it, looked like it had been touched, looked like she had used as evidence. So police investigators were saying, because this is the timeline that
I don't even want to
put
see
together.
her.
Once she killed John, she then took a shower. She changed. She then took John's.
That is another level of crazy. That is a demon. That's a straight up torture demon from hell. How can somebody have such a heart such a heart to be looking at that type of stuff and not have any type of remorse to stop. This is very sickening and is actually making me very, very nauseous.
Wallet, and she ran to do some errands. And they know this because at 12 a.m., John's bank card was used to take money out. They're assuming it was Catherine. That she took his card and she took out $1,000. What she planned to do with the money, nobody knows. They ended up never finding the money that she took out, so they assumed that she
gave it to her
money
side
and
nigga.
then she buried it somewhere. So she was gonna go back and get the money. But they never found it. So Catherine was immediately detained and she was in a coma, I believe, for 5 days. So they couldn't interview her until she woke up. And of course,
How the hell she in a coma?
When they demon left body.
Stupid. Yeah. Because when they arrived, she was upstairs asleep. And then they tried to wake her up and she wouldn't wake up, so they carried her outside. So she wasn't sleeping, she was in a coma. But how did she... So how did she... How the hell she get in a coma?
woke up and she was being interviewed, she had no memory of what happened before.
Look at this.
They never do. The whole interview, she just wasn't giving anything away. She does eventually accept the fact that she killed John. She claimed that she killed him due to the long string of abuse that she was receiving from John throughout
That she was
their
giving.
relationship. They never get like a clear story from her, like what happened, but she does admit that she killed him. Catherine's brother said that she told him she was going to kill John and get away with it because she was going to act crazy, which is exactly what she proceeded to do. Catherine originally in court pled not guilty, and then midway through the court trial, she ended up changing her plea to guilty, but she didn't give any reason as to why she did that. Nothing at all. She just was like, I want to change it, and she changed it to guilty. The judge was nervous about that because he knew exactly what she was going to try and do. She was going to appeal the case, saying that she pled guilty because she was insane at the time when she pled guilty. So she was just going to say that she was not in the right mental state to plead guilty. So she's like, she just knew what she was doing. She's a pretty smart cookie, give her that. Psychiatrists actually ended up doing an evaluation on her and determined that she was definitely in her right mind, that she was not mentally unstable like she was saying she was. What kind of test they gave her, I don't know. I think we can all agree that she was mentally ill, because who in the right mind would do that, right? But, nay, you should not get off lightly for that, because that is disturbing. Throughout court, she did not show any type of emotion.
At
She
all.
was just like... Then, out of nowhere, she randomly started acting crazy. She would start screaming at the top of her lungs, rocking back and forth, trying to portray this, I'm sick, which she's never done this throughout her entire life. So people knew that she was just
Putting
acting.
on the show.
She just wanted to manipulate the situation. And the judge knew that. He was really smart, and there's an interview on YouTube that I watched where he was like breaking it all down, and he just knew exactly what she was doing. The judge determined that she would get life in prison without the possibility of parole, and she's the first woman in Australia to get a life sentence with no chance of parole. So good for you, Catherine.
You accomplished
No one fully
something.
knows what took place that night, because Catherine still to this day has not talked about it, and no one knows what she did with the money. What did she do when she left the house? What the hell was she doing? What? In 2006, Catherine did apply to appeal. She claimed that her life sentence was too severe for her crime. She did. Obviously rejected this appeal and said, no, Catherine.
Your ass is sitting right up in here.
This is the worst thing we've ever seen in our lives, pretty much. Psychologists have examined Catherine, determined that killing and dismembering John was premeditated and an act of revenge. Plus, it just got her off on her perverted pleasure. Katherine really enjoyed. She's just a sick lady. In prison, Katherine attends church on a regular basis.
It's a show.
And she sings in a women's choir. I was reading different articles about Katherine, like in jail, and they're saying like she's the boss bitch around there, pretty much, that everybody listens to her.
I would be scared of her too.
And I don't know if she'll ever come clean about what she did that night. And that concludes the story about Katherine Knight.
I know why she was behaving like that. Because she had a demonic spirit, a very strong demonic spirit inside of her that couldn't act out with the other three guys. So John, oh, poor John. Poor John. John gonna lose his damn life because he ended up falling in love with the wrong person. But I don't understand though. He realized that there was something wrong a while ago. Why the hell did he stay? Like, these people too. Like, how you gonna be... How you gonna know you're in a really bad relationship and still stay in the relationship? He already agreed that he didn't want to marry her. Why are you still living with this person? You're already scared of the person. Telling people that if you die, so you knew you was gonna die, and you still stay? Like,